Take a deep breath and place your hand on your chest. That's it. Just notice something has already started to shift. You don't need to believe it. You'll feel it. Because this technique I'm about to show you doesn't come from a book. It comes from a place where healing doesn't have to be forced. And when you activate it, your body starts responding on its own. This practice was hidden for centuries, not because it was hard, but because it was way too simple to control, too simple to sell. Thoth left this teaching in the halls of a mentee, and those who find it no longer have to chase healing, because they realized the body was never sick. It was just trying to speak. Today, you're going to learn this technique, and it only needs one thing to work. All of you here, now, and at the end of this, I'll give you the exact step by step. But first, you need to go through the part of yourself you've most forgotten. Shall we go together? Healing is not about gaining something new, but removing what blocks your essence from shining. Thoth already said in the oldest texts that the flesh is only the shadow of the inner light, that everything you call a symptom, pain, tiredness, or imbalance is just the physical form of something that began long before in a place you can't see, but feel all the time. That place is the invisible field of your consciousness. The body only does one thing: translate. It translates your frequency, your constant emotional vibration. What you think and feel repeatedly starts forming an energetic density, and that density begins to put pressure on the body. An emotion held for a few days might go unnoticed, but held for months, for years, it gains vibrational mass. And when matter can't take it anymore, it gives in. And then you call that a disease. But the real name for that is accumulation. You don't have a sensitive stomach. You have truths you never digested, words you swallowed dry, situations you wanted to throw up, but had to keep inside. That's what weighs you down. That's what corrodes you from within. You don't have knee problems because you're getting old. You're afraid to kneel before life, afraid to surrender, afraid to let go of control. And because of that, your body stiffens. It tenses, it screams. You don't have weak lungs. You have unspoken words, suppressed cries, sorrows that never left your chest. Thoth called that an echo. He said, the body is the echo of the soul, that what the soul can no longer carry alone, the body absorbs. But this doesn't happen overnight. Pain shows up after every other attempt to communicate has failed. The body only screams when all the whispers have been ignored. That's why it was never your enemy. It's the messenger. And what hurts isn't in it. It's in the field that flows through it. In the vibrational buildup you didn't see forming, but it did. And it recorded it because the body is the final archive of your emotional story. When Thoth said not to treat the consequence, he wasn't denying medicine or physical care. He was saying not to stop there, because if you just silence the symptom, the field remains disorganized, and sooner or later, the body will scream again, somewhere else with a different intensity, and it will keep going until you go back to the beginning and ask, where did all this start? The answer is never in the medicine or the diagnosis. It's in the vibration, in the pattern you repeated for so long that the body could no longer compensate. And that's why it gets sick. Not from weakness, but from too much loyalty to what you couldn't change on your own. The body is loyal, even when that costs its own health. It adapts to what you feel. It tries to protect you. It keeps quiet. It does everything it can to stay balanced. But there comes a time when it just can't anymore. And in that moment, it reveals it. And when it reveals, if you're paying attention, you understand. Pain is not the end. It's the beginning of the return. This perspective changes everything. Because now, you don't treat the body with war, trying to fix, eliminate, or erase it. Now you treat it as a sacred mirror, a map. And if you observe with presence, it will show you exactly where the vibrational misalignment is, where you stopped listening to yourself, where you started abandoning yourself. Thoth said, the body is the field where the spirit makes its last attempt to reach you, that every organ has its language, that every part of you speaks, but only when you listen without judgment does that language become healing. From here on, a new way of relating to your body begins, not as something that needs to be fixed, but as a sensitive instrument that responds to the energy you cultivate. Healing doesn't start in the hospital. It starts the moment you understand that nothing in there is random, that everything carries a message, that every imbalance is a call to listen, the broken field where disease begins before it appears. When you start seeing the body not as a problem, but as a mirror, everything changes, because the root of imbalance is not in matter, it's in the field. Invisible, but completely real field that surrounds and flows through you all the time. A field made of frequency, of vibration, of energetic information that you yourself emit, whether consciously or not. So, it is said that this field is the true body, that the flesh is only the shadow of the field, that everything that shows up on the skin, in the blood, in the bones, was already written before, like a misaligned code vibrating in a dissonant way. The field is the mold, the body is the cast. If the mold cracks, the cast breaks, there's no other way. It's simple, direct, non-negotiable. And what cracks this field? What disorganizes this invisible structure that holds your health together? Repressed emotions, old fears, inherited beliefs, words you swallowed, situations you lived through and pretended to forget, but that are still vibrating there like background music. You don't notice, but that affects everything you feel. A trauma from childhood, for example, can stay active in the field for decades, even if you don't remember it anymore. Because the field doesn't need memory to maintain the vibration. It carries the energetic memory of what was felt and unresolved. Rejection, abandonment, injustice, all of that takes shape in the field. And when you don't welcome it, it becomes distorted. That distortion isn't visible to the naked eye, but it affects everything: your mood, your breathing, your sleep, your immunity, until the body steps in and manifests it, and you call it illness. When in reality, it's just a warning, reflection, an urgent request for realignment. It's said the body obeys the field like a river obeys its bed. If the riverbed is twisted, the river has no choice. It will follow. If the field is cracked, the body will reflect it. And this isn't punishment. It's energetic coherence. Energy doesn't lie. It simply responds to what you vibrate. Bruce Lipton, thousands of years later, confirmed this principle. He showed that the energetic environment around cells changes your biology more than your genes. That cells adapt to the internal chemistry created by your emotions and thoughts. If you constantly feel fear, your cells learn to live on alert. And that constant state of alert wears down and weakens you. The problem is that you've been conditioned to believe that only what is visible exists, that only what science can measure is real. And meanwhile, you're being controlled by forces you can't name, but you feel internal silent forces that come from your field and shape your reality without you noticing. And this is where Thoth's forbidden technique comes in. Because he didn't heal with formulas, he reorganized the field. And when the field came into order, the body adjusted by resonance, like a musical instrument, returning to the right pitch when the vibration harmonizes. But this doesn't happen through force or effort. It happens through listening. Listening to the field is the first step. Listening to where it is weak, where it is dense, where it is cracked. And this kind of listening doesn't come from the mind. It comes from feeling, from silence, from presence. That's why the pain you feel today might just be the echo of something you didn't want to feel back then. A grief you never processed, a frustration you swallowed, a guilt you chose to ignore. And while you ignore it, the field gets disorganized. And that disorganization spreads until it finds the body's most vulnerable point. It might be the heart if you carry old resentments. It might be the throat if you've never felt heard. It might be the intestines if you try to control everything. Every part of the body is the mirror of a specific point in the field. And this map is not theoretical. It's vibrational. You feel it. You recognize it even without understanding. That's why so many people seek treatments but don't heal, because they treat the body, but the field remains in disorder. And as long as the field is misaligned, the body will keep obeying the vibrational disorganization, like a mirror reflecting a broken image. And it's when you start realizing that the field vibrates before the body responds, that a new kind of listening begins to emerge. A listening that doesn't use the ears, but silent attention. The body is speaking all the time. The problem is you were taught to silence it, to numb, to mask, to run from the symptom, but never to understand. And understanding is what transforms. Thoth said, "The body is the altar." And like any sacred altar, what manifests there is not punishment, it's revelation. The soul kneels at this altar to be felt, not heard with words, but felt with presence. With every pain that emerges, the soul is begging to be heard. But how do you respond? With urgency, with judgment, with denial? And that's why the pain increases, because what was once a whisper ignored becomes a desperate scream. But the body doesn't want to hurt you. It wants to show you. It wants to remind you. It wants to give back everything you pushed into the dark, everything you try to hide, even from yourself. It doesn't make anything up. It only reveals. And this revelation follows a map, a vibrational map that those recorded, not as a metaphor, but as a coded language within the living temple of the body. A language that speaks through sensations, through symptoms, through tensions. And if you start listening to this language, you begin to understand what needs to be released in the throat. The pain is not just physical, it's the truth stuck inside. Words you wanted to say, but had no space for. Emotions that got stuck halfway. Screams you swallowed, and that now are trying to come out somehow through pain. Through coughing. Through tightness in the shoulders. The weight is not just muscular, it's the burden you carry for everyone. The guilt, the obligation, the responsibility of holding up the whole world even when you're falling apart. The shoulders hold what you didn't know how to let go of. And that's why they're heavy. In the heart, the tightness isn't random. It's the love you didn't live, the love you suppressed, the love that wasn't expressed or that was rejected. The heart hurts when you love in silence, when you pretend you don't feel, when you shut down to avoid being hurt again. But all of this vibrates and the body stores it on the skin. The itch, the inflammation, the discomfort, they are the shames you tried to hide, the parts of yourself you rejected, the image you created to be accepted while hiding who you truly are. The skin responds to the gaze of others, and it responds above all to your own judgment. Every organ carries a message. Every pain is a vibrational word. The body speaks as if it's writing incomplete sentences, and every symptom is a comma where you should have paused, a verb where there was no action, an exclamation where you only stayed silent. This language doesn't need a technical translation. It needs sensitivity. You don't need to know everything. You just need to start asking. What is this pain trying to tell me? Where did I abandon myself? What truth did I refuse to face? Because every pain has a vibrational origin point. And when you find that point, healing begins. And this listening can't be rushed. It requires pause, presence, and above all, absence of judgment. The body isn't wrong. The body is saving you. It's revealing what the mind censored. It's translating what the soul couldn't express. It's doing everything it can to bring you back. Thoth called this sacred listening. And he said, the body never punishes. It communicates that pain is the last resort. That the field always starts by whispering, but if ignored, it turns the whisper into discomfort, then into tension, then into pain, and only then into illness. Because the soul, when it wants to be heard, finds a way. And if you refuse to listen with awareness, you will listen with the body. Focus is the tool. Where you look, the field vibrates. Thoth taught that everything you contemplate with intention, with real presence, with living emotion, becomes solid, not as a metaphor, but as tangible reality. Because energy obeys consciousness that does not waver. Matter is just the end of the line. The beginning is in the gaze, in the focus, in the exact point where your attention lands. And we're not talking about random thinking. Thinking is not focusing. Focus is not vague thought. Focus is living presence. It's what you're holding vibrationally with what you feel as you observe. And those warned, the field responds to what you sustain, not to what you superficially wish for. If you say you want healing, but vibrate fear of pain, the field responds to fear. If you say you want lightness, but focus on what weighs you down, the field vibrates density. And then you think nothing works, that you're stuck, that there's no way out, when in fact, what's missing is vibrational coherence between what you say and what you sustain. And here's the key that almost no one sees. Focus is a transmitter. Wherever you place your focus, your energy goes. And where your energy goes, the field starts to shape. Focus is an invisible brush that redraws your subtle field. But this brush doesn't work in a rush or in anxiety. It only vibrates clearly when you are present, when what you feel and what you focus on are in the same frequency. Thoth said, "Simplicity is the doorway to power," that anything which seems too complex is usually meant to distract you. And it's true because the human mind has been trained to look for complicated formulas, as if the sacred could only exist hidden in something unreachable. But the sacred vibrates in simplicity, in the obvious, in what is right in front of you all the time. Closing your eyes and focusing on the warmth in your hands, feeling the rhythm of the breath coming in and going out, observing the area of the body where there is pain, but without judgment, just presence that already changes the field. Because where you focus with awareness, you bring light. And where there is light, there is vibrational order. And where there is order, healing begins. You don't need to repeat mantras if your mind is absent. You don't need to practice visualizations if you're vibrating distrust. None of that goes beyond the surface if your presence isn't fully there. Because energy doesn't respond to quantity, it responds to the quality of the vibration you're emitting right now. So try it. Put your focus on a point in your body that is expressing pain today. But not to analyze, not to judge, just to observe. Feel what pulses there, what vibrates, what emotion is hiding. Don't try to heal, just be fully completely, and see what starts to change when focus becomes a bridge. This simple practice is one of the most forgotten because it seems too easy, but that's where the secret lies. Focus aligned with emotion is the most direct tool for vibrational reorganization. It costs nothing, it doesn't require physical effort, but it demands something rare, true surrender. And as you train this focus, the field starts to obey. It begins to reorganize. And when the field changes, the body changes. Because the body is a reflection, a consequence. There's no point in trying to fix the mirror if what's broken is the face it reflects. You don't need control, you need coherence. Energy responds to what is sustained with truth, with consistency. And focus is the channel through which that truth begins to vibrate with precision. It is the bridge between the soul and the body. And if you know how to use it, you realize you don't have to force anything, just sustain it. And when you sustain focus with truth, something in the field begins to pulse differently. But for that vibration to become a stable reality, an even older force is needed, a code so subtle, most people ignore it, because it's happening all the time, but almost never with awareness. It's what those called the living bridge between worlds. The breath, breathing is not just biology. It's language, it's energetic direction. It's a signal. With each inhale, you allow the invisible in. With each exhale, you release something that was stuck. Breathing is a dance, an exchange between planes, a vibrational movement that either organizes or disorganizes everything around you, depending on how you do it. Thoth said that breath is the invisible thread connecting the soul to the flesh. That without breath awareness, you live divided, fragmented, split in half between spirit and body. But when breathing becomes conscious, you start stitching that separation. You start returning to yourself. You start gathering what was in pieces. Notice how you breathe when you feel fear. It's short, fast, almost non-existent. The air doesn't go down. It stops in your chest, it gets stuck, and the field gets stuck with it. The body interprets that as threat and responds with tension, with tightness, with rigidity. Now see how it is when you are at peace. The air flows like a river, it moves, it frees. The body surrenders, the field aligns. That's why Thoth said breathing with presence was aligning the invisible with the visible. Because breath is the point of entry, the beginning of the path. And where everything enters, everything can also leave. If you breathe with intention, you invite the new, and if you exhale with truth, you release the old. Breath is the most accessible code for vibrational reprogramming. But what almost no one knows is that your breathing pattern holds memories. It was shaped by traumas, by shocks, by losses, by words you couldn't respond to, by situations where you had to stay silent. And each of those experiences was recorded in your way of breathing. That's why changing your breath isn't just relaxing. It's healing deep patterns. It's opening inner doors that were sealed for years. And the most amazing part, you don't need anything external, just presence. Feel the air entering. Feel where it wants to go, but is blocked. Feel the point in the body where it stops, and just observe without forcing, without trying to control. Just allow. And when you allow, the body starts to release, because the field understands that the soul is back. That release is subtle, but real. It's when the tightness in the stomach starts to ease, when the knot in the throat begins to loosen, when the tension in the shoulders starts to dissolve without effort, without struggle, just with present breathing. Because presence has this power, it organizes chaos without having to fight it. The hands that heal, the forgotten memory of sacred touch. You activate an ancient code that has been asleep in you since birth. And it's in your hands. Yes, your hands. The ones you use every day, but rarely with presence. Thoth said that touch is the gesture of the spirit moving through the world of form. That there is no separation between intention and matter. When the hand moves with soul, touch is not just contact. It is transmission. It is vibration condensed into gesture. When you rest your hand on a point of your body with real attention and affection, you're not just making contact. You're channeling. You're reorganizing. You're saying without words, I see you. I hear you. I acknowledge what has been denied for so long. A baby does this instinctively. They place their own hand where it hurts. They touch the area of discomfort. And in that moment, a pause happens, a reconnection. Because they still remember. They haven't yet been taught to forget that touch is sacred, that the hand is an extension of the soul, that the skin responds faster to affection than to medicine. And you can remember too. Thoth's forbidden technique was never something to be learned. It was something to be recognized. Something that rises out of silence. Because it's only when the inner noise quiets down that you begin to realize you've always known. Place your hand on your chest, on your stomach, on your forehead, on the point that's calling your attention right now. But don't bring doubt. Don't bring haste. Don't bring judgment. Bring presence. Bring listening. Bring surrender and wait. Because the body will begin to respond, but it only responds in silence, in the space between what you expect and what you truly feel. Silence is where energy communicates without needing proof, where healing happens without ritual, where the sacred shows up without effort. Thoth called this space the veil between worlds, where the dense begins to dissolve, where the mind loses control and the soul takes the lead, where everything reorganizes. Because you finally stopped getting in the way of the flow. You spent your life trying to fix, searching for techniques, believing you needed to do more, know more, push more, but energy has never responded to urgency. It has always responded to surrender. When you stop, everything begins to align. When you breathe without seeking, just feeling. When you stop trying to understand and simply allow. When you step away from control and make space, you don't become healed, you become whole. It's at that point that the field starts to act on its own. The intelligent field which has been waiting for your ego to make room, for wisdom to work. And this is where most people pull back. Because this space is too simple, too quiet, too subtle. But it is in this exact moment that you begin to remember. And what you remember can no longer be forgotten. Because in this emptiness full of presence, you recognize yourself. And when that happens, the idea of healing disappears because you realize you never needed to be healed. You only needed to remember who you are. Thoth's forbidden technique, the ritual of the invisible healer. And now, you stand before the most powerful point of this journey, remembrance. Because that's what it has always been. Not about learning something new, but about remembering what was hidden inside you so carefully that not even time could erase it. Thoth taught that the sick body is not an enemy, but a mirror covered in dust. And the forbidden technique he passed on to the initiates in the temples wasn't miraculous because of its complexity. It was forbidden precisely because it was too simple, because it didn't rely on medicine or on any external tool, only on your present coherent real vibration. And if you've made it this far, it's because the code has started to pulse again in you. This ancient but living vibration. You are not broken, you are misaligned. And to realign is not to fix, it is to return. Return to what you were before the guilt, before the rush, before forgetting. That's why before showing how to apply the sacred technique, Thoth would say, do not approach in a hurry. Vibration doesn't bloom in urgency. It only blooms when you are fully in the now. And fully doesn't mean without pain. It means willing. The ritual of the invisible healer begins when you become available to yourself. Choose a space where you can be without hiding. It doesn't need to be beautiful or special. It just needs to be sincere. A floor, a chair, a sunlit corner. This will be your living temple. Return to it every day, even if just for 5 minutes. Because vibration is built in return, not in spectacle. Then sit down, close your eyes, place your left hand on your heart, and your right hand on your abdomen. Bring your breath to the center of your chest. Inhale counting to 4, hold for 4, and exhale counting to 8. Do this 7 times and forget the clock as you breathe. Energy begins to up, not through force, but through resonance. And when you finish, don't open your eyes yet. Stay for 3 minutes in silence, expecting nothing. Just feel, listen without searching. Let the body speak. The field organizes itself when you stop pushing. Now, choose a point on your body, any point where there is discomfort or just a subtle calling. Bring your hands there. Feel the warmth of the touch. Silently repeat, I see you, I hear you, I'm with you. This is the language of the living temple. The body understands what the mind cannot translate. Finally, bring your hands to the center of your chest and say, today I held myself, and that is enough. Not as a mantra to cheer you up, but as a vibrational seal. You are not trying to heal. You are teaching your energy to stop running from itself. Do this for 7 to 15 minutes a day. Don't expect immediate results. Expect coherence, expect reconnection, expect truth. The technique doesn't need perfection. It needs consistency because it's not about doing. It's about sustaining. And the more you sustain your presence, the more your original frequency returns. Thoth said that the true initiates are not recognized by their words, but by their vibration, because they don't carry formulas, they carry remembrance. And now, you are among them because you have returned. You listen to yourself, and that is the beginning of everything. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you has already started to remember. So write this in the comments. I activated the healer within me. This phrase is more than a comment. It is a vibrational command. Every person who writes it strengthens this frequency in the field. And if you feel in your heart that this message needs to reach more people, you can support the channel directly. The link to contribute is right here in the first pinned comment. That will spread more of this forgotten wisdom and activate even more awareness out there. And before you go, stay with me until the end, because I saved a special video for you. It will be right here on the screen. Click it, so we can meet there and continue this activation together.